This is the World Organic News for the week ending 16 of October 2017. Jon Moore reporting. We begin this week with a worrying development in honey. From the Blog Quartz comes the post. Scientists found bee-killing neonicotinoids in 75% of honey samples from around the world. Quote, a study published October 6 in the journal Science found that a significant amount of the world's honey contains traces of neonicotinoids, a class of commonly used pesticides, at levels strong enough to cause brain damage in bees. The chemicals are meant to attack the nervous system of pests and keep them from eating crops, but it appears they also hurt bees, which have been dying off in huge numbers in recent years, much to the befuddlement of researchers around the globe. End quote. This is a deeply concerning piece of research. There is some argument for the fact that neonics may not be killing bees outright, that is, a full colony on day 1 and no colony on, say, day 3, but that they are more insidious. By weakening the adult females collecting the honey, they don't tend to live as long as they would have. This means the next wave of workers have to step up before they are fully mature, and the cycle continues until there aren't any workers to feed the hive. So a slow collapse of the colony structure by the gradual effect of increasing neonics. Add to this the neonics in the honey and the problem is magnified. This may or may not be the cause of colony collapse disorder, but it seems a fair working hypothesis. Because neonics are systemic, that is, they reside in every cell of the treated plant, there is no mechanism for avoiding them. They are effective at killing pests which bite, burrow into and suck sap, but there are other insects which are of benefit to the producer. Apart from honeybees and all the other species of bees which assist with pollination, there are predator species which attack the plant-destroying insects. Now, a monoculture of a crop will attract the unwanted insects as quickly as free beer attracts alcoholics, and monocultures are the preferred cultures for industrial farming methods. Economies of scale, cost savings on fencing, remotely operated or even, in air quotes, smart, self-driving tractors. These economic considerations make perfect sense if the full costs are not paid by the producer. So things like health costs to the general population from long exposure to carcinogenic pesticides, like the now banned DDT, are covered by the healthcare industry, not the producers of the pesticides. They can keep their costs relatively low and charge a very healthy margin to farmers who have been convinced to plant monocultures, invest in expensive machinery, and now need a return on investment to keep the banks happy. The monocultures and their economies of scale create feeding grounds for pest insects. The farmers need to return a profit or go bankrupt. The insecticide companies don't pay the full costs imposed by their products, and therefore we have DDT and neonics, to name but a few. The difference between DDT and neonics is that DDT had to be resprayed every time there was an outbreak of pests. Neonics sit there, in the plant, ready to attack the nervous system of any insects that consumes a plant part. Hooray for science. Less spraying equals good for the environment. No? Well, yes and no. Yes, if less spraying means less pesticide actually in the environment, but in the case of systemic pesticides, the answer is a very definite no. Neonics sit there, just waiting in every cell of the plant. Not surprisingly, this also includes pollen and nectar cells. Pollinators smack up against these cells and then neonic compounds. But I hear you ask, such tiny amounts can have not much of an effect, can they? I'm so glad you asked. From the Post. Quote, for the study, researchers analysed 198 honey samples from around the world, testing them for 5 common neonicotinoids, which I won't pronounce because I can't. They are in the show notes. They discovered that at least one of these was present in 75% of the samples, and 34% of the samples contained concentrations of the compounds known to be lethal to bees. End quote. It would appear some form of regulation or ban on these chemicals should have happened yesterday, but has only been partially implemented in the EU. So why are bees so important? After all, not everyone gets their sugar from honey. Honey is almost a pleasant side effect of bees and their behaviours. A post from onegreenplanet.org from back on the 26th of March this year gives a few clues. Quote, a new study published in Nature Communications found that just 2% of wild honeybee species contributes 80% of the crop pollination visits observed globally. This means that if this small percentage of bees disappear, then 80% of our agricultural system will collapse. 70 of the top 100 food crops grown worldwide rely on pollinators. This is equivalent to 90% of the world's nutrition. It might sound unbelievable, but without bees we can say goodbye to such food as apple, almonds, oranges and avocados." End quote. Indeed, we would be left with plants that are either wind-pollinated or which reproduce asexually. So basically things like cereals, wheat, rye, maize, sorghum and so on, potatoes and pineapples. I love pineapples, but I really would prefer other fruits sometimes. Some herbs could continue through propagation by cutting, so rosemary, sage and the like. It does seem we would be left with a very dull diet with very poor nutritional outcomes. Bees matter a lot, as do the birds which assist in the pollination process and the other insects, butterflies, wasps and the like. We have a choice. Fill every cell of every food plant with a poison to kill insects, including bees, and move to a diet of spuds, bread and pineapple, or end the use of systemic and other, and I would argue all other, pesticides. This will mean a necessary change in the means of production. Monocultures will have to go. Alley cropping is one solution, which still maintains some economies of scale while adding the benefits of habitat for beneficial insects and birds, reducing soil erosion, protecting crops and livestock, and increasing tree numbers. There are solutions. I have argued elsewhere in this podcast and on the blog that supporting a large number of smaller farmers would bring even more benefits to both the farmers and society as a whole. There's a link in the show notes. We could start by converting and rehabilitating every, or maybe nearly every, golf course on Earth and turning them into local organic food producing hubs. There are ways. We must seize them before it is too late. Live in hope and grow at least a little of your own food. To that end, the 1 square metre garden handout is still available. Email me at square@worldorganicnews.com and it'll be in your inbox pronto. There's a link at the top of the show notes. And with that, I'll finish up for this week. Thanks for listening. I'll be back at the same time.